You know that feeling when you've literally studied for hours, you know the material inside and out, but somehow you still don't get the grade you expected on your IT 9626 exam? Yeah, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we are completely decoding the secret language of the examiner's mark scheme. We're going to transform that standard rote memorization into real, scenario-based mastery. Because this explainer, it isn't just about learning the facts. It's about learning exactly how the examiner wants you to use them.
Okay, let's just jump straight into what I like to call the cold open mistake. Listen to this, because 9 out of 10 students lose massive points right out of the gate simply because they ignore this exact examiner warning. If you can't justify why a choice matters to the user or organization in the scenario, you haven't finished the answer. It's that simple. You could know every single definition in the textbook, but if you drop a generic definition into a highly specific scenario, that examiner's red pen is coming out for sure. You absolutely have to anchor your knowledge to the real world.
So let's actually break down that exact trap. Imagine a flawed, super generic definition of symmetric encryption. It might say something like, symmetric encryption uses one key to lock and unlock data. I mean, sure, that's technically true, but in the exam, that scores a grade E. Why? Because it's completely missing the context. Now contrast that with an improved, top-band A-star response. It takes that exact same mechanism, but anchors it to a specific hospital database scenario. It explains that this keeps patient records confidential and meets legal compliance if intercepted. See the difference? It transforms a boring textbook fact into a practical, real-world solution.
That definition-only shortcut, it's a massive red warning sign for examiners. Naming a concept without actually explaining its mechanism in the given scenario is a classic wrong turn. For example, if the test asks you about audio export formats for a music production scenario, just saying higher sample rates mean better quality won't cut it. No way. You have to adopt an application-first mindset. The scenario isn't just background decoration. It is the absolute core of your answer. Context is king here. Every single point you make has to stay strictly within that scenario's constraints.
So what's the fix? How do we systematically avoid this trap every single time? Well, enter the Peel-J Answer framework. This is a high-band writing framework specifically designed to logically structure your long-form responses. It acts like a safety net, guaranteeing that you don't just dump facts onto the page, but actually build a reasoned, examiner-approved argument. When you use this structure, you literally force yourself to connect the theory directly with the application. Let's see this actually play out in action with a direct data entry, or DDE, question. Imagine a scenario where a resort is using QR codes. The low-level response just says something like, take a photo of the code. It completely fails the describe command word. But the high-level Peel-J response? That one explains how the resort app processes the matrix of dark squares and automatically links to the web server for online ticket purchases, entirely without user typing. It's detailed, and most importantly, it is deeply scenario-specific. All right, let's really break down these 5 letters step by step, because mastering them is crucial. First up, P is for point. Start strong with a direct technical point or requirement. E is for evidence. Provide specific evidence from the syllabus or the case study itself. The second E is for explanation. This is the actual mechanism, detailing exactly how and why the process works. Then L is for link. Connect your explanation directly back to the practical consequence for the user or organization in the scenario. And finally, J is for judgment. Conclude with a comparative evaluation or justification. Basically, why is this specific technology the absolute best fit? And this whole approach leads us straight into what is known as the mark magnet strategy. When you shift your focus to specific examiner clues, like those big command words explain, evaluate, or justify, and you link your explanation directly back to real-world applications like a payroll system or a spreadsheet model, your answer acts as a literal magnet for top marks. You're not just listing undeveloped points anymore. You're actively engaging with the exact terminology that triggers mark allocation.
But wait, how on earth are you supposed to remember all of this when you're actually sitting there under exam pressure? Well, we need to replace standard, passive memorization with a reliable mental structure. And we do this using the 4-prompt memory structure. Next time you study a complex concept, I want you to ask yourself these 4 active questions out loud. 1. What is it? Define it precisely. 2. How does it work? Explain the technical mechanism. 3. Where is it used? Anchor it to a workplace context. And 4. Why is it better or worse? Contrast it against the alternatives. If you can answer these 4 prompts, your knowledge is 100% exam ready.
Let's apply those exact 4 prompts directly to something real, like utility software.
Take an encryption utility, for example. What is it? It's software to secure patient records. How does it work? By using an algorithm to scramble data into an unreadable format. Where is it used? In a hospital data protection policy. And why is it the better choice? Because it maintains patient confidentiality and legal compliance, ensuring the data remains totally inaccessible without the decryption key. Answering these 4 prompts completely eliminates vague wording and absolutely forces a scenario-linked explanation.
All right, let's pause for a second. I've got a quick interactive challenge for you. Think fast. What is the exact difference between validation and verification? And don't just give me the textbook definitions. Mentally distinguish between these two frequently confused concepts right now in your head. How would you explain why one matters over the other in a data entry scenario? Take a second to really lock your answer in.
Now, if you hesitated even for a split second there, well, that perfectly illustrates our next big strategy: explicit concept compression. Getting top marks requires you to actively distinguish between nearby concepts. Think of it like this. Validation asks, is the data reasonable? While verification asks, is the data accurate to the original source? The same exact rule goes for contrasting custom versus off-the-shelf software. If you can't articulate the fine line between similar IT concepts, you risk describing a completely different technology that only sounds related.
Let's bring that comparative thinking right back to our encryption example from earlier. Symmetric encryption relies on a single key for both locking and unlocking data, which means the sender and receiver have to share that exact same key. Asymmetric encryption, however, uses a public and private key pair, which totally solves the secure key distribution problem. Top answers don't just define one or the other, they clarify exactly how these fundamental mechanisms differ and evaluate which one actually fits the specific security requirements of the provided scenario.
To actually build this level of deep understanding, you really need a bulletproof study cycle. Enter the 3-pass revision cycle. Pass 1, fix foundations. Get your key definitions and core contrasts locked firmly into memory. Pass 2, rehearse procedures. Practice writing out worked explanations and step-by-step practical procedures based heavily on past paper mark schemes. And finally, Pass 3, adapt contexts. Change the scenario up. Take a concept you learned for a school network and try to apply it to a hospital database. This tests your real-world transfer and proves you actually understand the underlying mechanism. Now, when you're analyzing complex things like graphs and charts, you absolutely have to use method mark capture. Even if your final recommendation in a data analysis scenario has a slight flaw, you can still capture massive points if your working is systematically laid out. Examiners literally have a checklist. When you use the PLJ framework, you are providing clear, structural evidence of deconstructing the problem, solving it with technical logic, and attempting an evaluation. It shows the examiner your methodology, and let me tell you, that is heavily rewarded.
So before you hand in your very next exam, I want you to ask yourself this one provocative reality check. Did I explain how the technique works, or did I just name it? Never, ever settle for just dropping a vocabulary word. Anchor it, explain the mechanism, and link it right back to the scenario. Take the PELJ framework and the 4-prompt structure into your next study session. You have the blueprint now, so go ace those exams.